5 years ago, I began talking about some foreign words like IP and cloud and software-defined networking, and here we are 5 years later, and I think what all of you are going to experience at this show is not just the realities around IP, cloud, and software, but things like microservices that we're going to talk a lot about here at the show, and I think you'll hear some of our peers talking a lot about new technologies like microservices and how microservices and IP together are really changing our industry. So 5 years ago, I talked about the cloud and IP, and here we are in a reality of the cloud delivering IP raindrops, from what I understand, all week, right? So we have you captured all week. Anyway, I'm excited to be here, and I'm really proud of what this team has accomplished. You know, certainly if you just look around at our booth here and look at the way we are presenting Imagine and delivering our solutions, it's dramatically different than it was 3 or 4 years ago. As you can see, there's not a lot of black blinking boxes. Our technology, our portfolio, for the most part, has moved to a software-defined workflow, and it's where this industry has gone, is going, and it's why Imagine is going to continue to lead in this space. So these are the topics that I'm going to try to cover here with you all. I know you're going to enjoy the presentation because we're the only vendor that is supplying you with liquid fun, and there's plenty of it. So if I begin to get dry, feel free to stand up and have another glass of wine. But I'm going to talk a little bit about where we're at from an industry perspective, give you an update on Imagine. I'm going to talk about platforms, and we've talked about products, we've talked about software, we've talked about solutions, but I think the one big theme that you're going to hear from Imagine this week is we're moving into this era of platforms, and it's really a game changer for us. We've sort of reinvented advertising. We've quietly been innovating in the background. We oftentimes spend so much time at these shows talking about IP infrastructure and how playout and channels are changing and what the internet and mobility is doing for a whole new category around OTT. But we've been doing a lot of really cool innovation around subscriptions and advertising and how that world is changing. And then I'll open it up for Q&A. I'll invite Brick and Sarah, or Brick and Gladina to join me, and you guys can fire away. So, look, I think we all know that we now are, in this era that is certainly the most transformational era that this industry has ever experienced ever. And, it's amazing to kind of think about how we viewed content just 3 or 4 years ago. And it's not just the young people who are watching content on mobile devices, it's all of us who are watching content of any source, the way we search, the way we view, it's changed. And what has made it very challenging for companies like us that we looked at and thought about 3, 4, 5 years ago was how the technology that was ultimately going to deliver today's technology needed to change. And we began innovating 3 or 4 years ago, and it's why I believe that Imagine is the only company that is as prepared for the world that is going to redefine this industry. So you look at just some of the basic viewing habits. You look at, one sampling of 18 to 24-year-olds who used to watch 25 hours of video content, traditional linear content a week, which is down to close to 15 hours today. So you look at that, and then you look at that same demographic that's up close to 270% watching that same content on mobile devices. Linear advertising and subscription revenue is down, something Steve and I and Brick and the team have been talking about for 3 or 4 years. We certainly don't want to see our traditional customers, advertising revenue, subscription revenue to decline, but it's what the internet and what mobility has done to transform and transition this industry. And our goal, it's something I share with our employees as often as I can. Our goal is to make sure that our traditional TV network and broadcast customers are relevant, that they're relevant today and they're relevant 5, 10 years from now. And it means that they have to think differently about their own business plans and their own business models and how they're going to deliver content in the future on next generation IP, cloud, and software-based platforms. So what's interesting is we've been talking about consolidation as suppliers for a long time. I've been talking about consolidation since I got here. And there's not been a whole lot of consolidation amongst the suppliers. But there's been a whole heck of a lot of consolidation that's taken place with our clients. And it's really straining the supplier community. Because if you think about yesterday where we were selling to X number of broadcast station groups and media companies, and today, you know, you've got not only a consolidation era that's occurring amongst traditional broadcast station groups and TV networks, but you have new companies like AT&T who's entering the world, who was, you know, a company delivering spectrum for wireless services and the internet for connectivity to your home that's now bought Turner and they bought DirecTV. And so the landscape has changed. It's put a lot of stress and strain on the equipment suppliers like Imagine to be able to, you know, continue to keep up with the scale and global requirements that the industry is demanding on us. So I'd say the last 24 months, if you know, and I'm sure most of the media is keeping track of a lot of the public companies, but most of our public peers that, you know, have to disclose their financials haven't been doing so well. And they haven't been doing so well because nobody wants to spend money, you know, 7 to 10 year depreciation cycles. Nobody wants to spend money on the old stuff. And everybody wants to spend money on the new stuff, but not everyone has fully adopted and embraced the new technologies. And so most of the equipment suppliers, including Imagine, are in sort of this bottom of this U shape. And I think we're sort of at the bottom, because if I just look at where we're at as one of those companies as it relates to adoption to our next generation technologies, and I look at where we're at with a lot of, you know, next generation IP and software and OTT trials, you know, you can see, and I spend a lot of time with customers myself, and you can see that none of these clients, small or large, wants to spend money on the old technology. I think the biggest challenge that this industry has, that we have right now, is demonstrating, convincing customers that the technology is here, it's ready, it's stable, it's secure. And I think at this show, at IBC, we're going to be able to convince customers that not only is IP, SDN, microservices, technologies is available from Imagine, but we're deploying it, and it's stable, and it's real. We've quietly grown our next generation portfolio about 40% CAGR over the last 3 years. So when we kind of look at our portfolio, certainly our traditional legacy products are declining, but we're seeing huge growth with our next generation product sales across our entire portfolio. And you know, we've seen a huge uptick in our ad management portfolio. We've had over $100 million in business that we've closed over the last year. What we're seeing in growth and adoption with playout and automation is very exciting. What you're going to see with some of the new announcements that we're making around our network, our core IP portfolio with Selenio SMP, which is very exciting for the team, and I know our sales team that's in the back there is, you know, continuing to push Mark and the team on when we can ship the SMPs, but we're really excited about that. But within our portfolio, you know, our next generation revenue has been growing, and it's growing steadily, and it needs to continue to grow over the next several years to where we can get past that inflection point of where, you know, our next generation revenues are outpacing our legacy revenues. So I've kind of got this, you know, especially since the media is here, everybody wants to know where things are headed, and I certainly will share with you what my thoughts are on a broader scale. But, you know, if I kind of look at where we're at right now today, certainly, you know, this industry has adopted IP as the direction of where the industry is going for all the right reasons. Software and its ability to define, you know, the way technologies and platforms are architected is certainly in today's era. The cloud is becoming more and more of a technology that's being adopted. OTT is something that every single broadcaster and TV network is looking at. But if you kind of look at where we see the industry going over the next just 2 or 3 years, we see things like ubiquitous hybrid IP and cloud networks, We think that that's real. We think that that's ultimately, over the next 3 to 5 years, the way the network's going to be built. Microservices architectures are going to be the way companies like Imagine deploys technology. We think we're the only company here at this show that has a true native microservices architecture. We'll talk to you about why. You'll hear other companies talking about microservices because Imagine's been talking about microservices, and God forbid if we come to a show and we're not talking about what the latest buzzword is, but we can actually demonstrate our microservices platform at this show, and we'll talk about how 5 out of the last 7 products that we've launched have been built on top of our microservices architecture. As I said, we put a lot of energy in our ad management portfolio, and we've been talking a lot about advanced advertising, things like impression-based selling, that most of our North America MSO, the cable companies, have begun to adopt. Companies like Sky have adopted, ITV have adopted, and we're really excited about where that portfolio is going. I think at some point linear and OTT strikes a balance. I don't know exactly where that is, but I don't think linear is going away, at least for most of us. But I do think that linear is going to continue to give up to an internet-based digital OTT services. And I do think at some point we're going to see consolidation in the industry. So let me give you a quick update on Imagine. And I know that at least even within our own company, there's been lots of rumors about Imagine. You know, when you're a privately held company and you're 4 years into the investment cycle, there's always lots of rumors flying around about what we're going to do with the business. And what I can tell you is, and I'll talk a little bit more about it, you know, we've spent a lot of time thinking about what's the best thing for Imagine. And, you know, I wish our investors spent more time at our shows and they were able to see, you know, what our team and employees are doing to create more value for the investment that they have. But I personally believe, and I think my management team personally believes, that this is an opportunity for our investors to double down. And we've been talking a lot about something inside the company called Imagine 2.0. Imagine 1.0 is taking what was Harris Broadcast and divesting it out of Harris and creating today's Imagine. And there was a lot of work that went into getting to this point. Not just transforming the company, it was transforming a culture, and it was refocusing our products on where the industry was going and trying to get well ahead of where the industry needs to be. You know, there's a funny show that most of us have watched, and you know, there's a cliche that you're either first or you're last. And you know, I'm a big believer that you know, you have to be a market mover to be first. And I think what we've done is convinced our investors that we're going to be first, and we are first. And I think early adopters get rewarded, and I think that that's going to have a lot to do with Imagine going forward. I made this statement back in 2014, and it's probably one of the statements that, you know, I've been wrong, because I thought that, you know, 2-3 years ago that we would see a lot more consolidation in the space amongst the equipment suppliers, and we really haven't. And I think, frankly, it's going to get harder and harder for supplier consolidation as the industry moves more to software-based technologies. When we look at how we're building technologies today, it's really hard for us to look at acquiring certain companies that don't fit ideally and perfectly into the software stack that we're building our own technologies on. So, as an example, I mean, if you look at what we're doing with Versio Platform, which is the only platform in the industry from playout to automation that's fully integrated on a software-based microservices architecture, it's hard to go consolidate somebody who's in that space and then, you know, be able to incorporate their products into that roadmap. The only consolidation value that you get in a lot of those cases is the customer and consolidating the customers. And, you know, this is an industry that, while it's resilient, I think that it's challenging to assume that, you know, you can acquire companies for their customers and they're just going to migrate onto your platforms. And so I think that it's going to be very challenging for the small companies to survive. I've said that for the last 2 or 3 years, and I think we're seeing it. It's hard to continue to innovate when the top line revenue, you know, continues to decline. And so, you know, I think this industry needs to find a way to consolidate. I just am not convinced I see the best path forward with consolidation. So I mentioned this before, but I want to maybe send this message as loud to my own employees that are here as much as the media that has been hearing a lot of rumors that Imagine is selling the company or we're doing some M&A. We've certainly looked at a lot of things, but you know, our position right now today, and you know, tomorrow's a new day, but our position right now today is our investors are investing more money in the company. We're going to double down. We think there's an opportunity for us to hit the accelerator button, and I think that's going to provide a lot of excitement for us and our employees and for our industry. So real quick, just to give you a kind of a snapshot on how we're performing, we've had kind of a steady state pipeline of about $1 billion for the last couple of years. The big difference in our pipeline today versus our pipeline 3 or 4 years ago is what's in that pipeline. And most of our pipeline today is made up of all next generation projects. And that's what's exciting, because that's what's going to fuel the next decade for the company. There's a tail associated with every win. You know, when you win a large project like Disney, it creates a lot of new opportunities that you wouldn't have had you had not been in that project. And we've as a result of that, we've been very focused on a lot of these what we call proof of concepts. Proof of concepts has multiple categories, from helping customers with business cases and ROIs and how they're going to evolve their existing network, to actually putting products and services out there and allowing them to test and trial the products. And there's, we've had hundreds of POCs over the last 12 to 18 months that are beginning to cash in to big wins, which I'll highlight for you guys in a few minutes. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we weren't making a lot of money. And we weren't making a lot of money because we were investing a lot of money in innovation. And that was hard to do when you're PE owned. When you're PE owned, it's very hard to convince your investors that we're going to spend $80, $90 million a year on R&D. But we did that. And it was the right thing for us to do. And we're beginning to benefit from that. Last year we had double-digit EBITDA margins. This year we're going to have double-digit EBITDA margins. And I think as we look into 2018 through 2020, as we see the top-line revenue coming back and continuing to maintain software-like margins, I think Imagine is going to be in a very good place. We've had a lot of exciting wins, and it's on the chart, but I have some that I'm going to highlight for you in a second, so I'll save that for you. And we've had, just this year, 18 new next-generation IP cloud deployments. So, for those who, are talking about IP and talking about cloud, we're actually deploying it, and we're learning a lot as we go. So, some recent wins that I thought I would highlight for you, across our entire portfolio. And these are all next generation design wins. In the ad management category, we had a big win recently with Media du Sud. DirecTV just re-upped a big contract with us. Sky just is expanding their business with us. We just closed a very large project with Nine down in Australia. Cox, Charter, Comcast, Altice, all the major MSOs in North America together, I think, generated close to $100 million in ad management value for the company. There's just a lot of momentum right now going on with IP playout. I've never seen so many IP playout RFPs that are coming in the door right now. I mean, every company is looking to evolve their baseband channel playout to an IP cloud architecture. And some recent wins that we can talk about are Abu Dhabi, which, at NAB last year stood up with me and announced to everyone that they were moving to Imagine's next generation IP platform. Nine is another really big win that we were awarded that business this week. Sony Singapore was a huge success. I think Sony Singapore is one of our largest IP deployments right now. Franco. From an IP core perspective, we're slowly trying to figure out how we can help the carriers. I wish we had more telco sales folks, because I think that the traditional AT&T and Verizons and BTs of the world, the FTs of the world, that they're going to figure out how they participate in this space. But where we have resources and where we've been able to, spend some time, we're actually winning some really important projects, both on the OTT side as well as on the playout side. But we just won a very exciting big project with QVC Japan. So QVC in North America has been a big IP core partner with us for the past couple of years. But this was a really heated project between us and Evertz and Grass Valley, and we were really excited to see QVC select Imagine. I think it's a pivotal point for the company, especially when you think about QVC, who's buying the Home Shopping Network. They're going to be the world's largest, live content, provider in the world. So it's a big win for us. On the mobile side, our European team just kick ass when it comes to these mobile trucks and what we're doing with TPC and Sono and Gearhouse. I mean, it's just really exciting to see, the transformation that's taken place and the way these new trucks are being designed and how they're able to take advantage of our next generation technologies. Our new SMP gateway is going to fit perfectly into a lot of these mobile truck applications. And on the OTT side, we've quietly made some really exciting headlines. We were at the core of CenturyLink's network. We had a big win last year with Rogers. Charter is deploying our dynamic ad insertion platform. And so there's a lot of exciting things that really are validation points as it relates to not just the technology that we're bringing out to the market, but real live deployments that give us the references that we need. I don't know if Steve Reynolds is still here, but we put a lot of energy behind something that was really important to us, and I know I've shared some of this with all of you, and I only put this up here because every time I show this slide, the number of members that have joined AIMS has gone up by 10 or 15. And it was just 18 months or so ago that we introduced this idea that the vendor community has to come together. As competitive as the landscape is, we all have to come together and agree on what the standards need to be going forward, so we don't create an environment for our customers to be in quicksand. And we've brought together the most important companies in this industry to get behind the evolution of IP and the standards that are going to support IP. And AIMS is now up to 76 members, and we're really proud to say that we were one of the 3 companies that founded AIMS, and that really has been a catalyst. We're on most of the technology forums that dictate a lot of the activity. If you get a chance, I believe that there's an AIMS. Do we know, Brick? Is there an AIMS booth here? Okay, the IP Showcase. So you should take a look at just how far along we all are in interoperating with one another. I would tell most of our customers they don't have to go anywhere else other than the Imagine booth, but because we can do it already. But what's neat is to see an Imagine product that's interoperating with Grass Valley and Ross and Harmonic and everyone else that is part of AIMS. So I just want to make sure you catch the headline right here. So we're really moving into this era of products to platforms. So most people don't understand what that means. They understand the difference between hardware and software, and they understand what the cloud is. It's raining IP pellets. But platforms is really where Imagine has been investing in the last couple of years. It's really where we're going to focus going forward. We think that that's where our value is. We think that customers don't want to buy products. They want to deploy solutions, but they want to deploy platforms that they can deliver services on. And so we believe, and we continue to believe, that success is going to require innovation. Innovation is going to require spend. And we're going to have to continue to make sure that we're investing in those key areas that we feel the industry has to adopt and that Imagine can be a leader. Innovation, I think, more than ever, is going to require acceleration and velocity. And you guys cover the space. But think about what's happened in the last 2 or 3 years. It's pretty amazing. I mean, some of you have been covering the space for 20 years or more. And there's been exciting things to report, but never have you been able to report this much change. And it's change that's going to dramatically change the entire space. And for us, we feel like the only way that we have a chance of participating and winning is if we continue to innovate. So for 50 years, people bought boxes, a box that performed a certain function that you put in the network. It had blinking lights, and companies like Harris Broadcast and Evertz and others would throw a catalog on an engineer's desk, and they would go to page 68 and they would find that product and they would buy it, and that's the way networks were built for a long time. And then we sort of quietly came into this era where more and more products, even hardware-based products, were defined by software. There were software elements inside of hardware-based platforms that were driving a lot of the technology capabilities. And now we're moving into an era of platforms and software-defined platforms for us that has some unique capabilities around microservices. So, this was the old world. This is the new world, and this is our portfolio. So it's I'm not just talking about some PowerPoint slides. This is what Imagine is going to do. I mean, this is our portfolio that is today completely software defined, and in our mind is the gateway to the future. Everything that we're doing on the ad management side, we launched this whole new next generation architecture called XG, which is a modular design of the way advertising and all the various components of the ad management chain is going to be deployed. Versio has moved to a complete software-defined platform. We have now Versio version 3.x that is all IP that is being deployed around the world. The Disney deployment is going fantastic. We're getting ready to deploy in many of Disney's international facilities, including Japan and Singapore. One of the things that we're doing with Nexio, which is our market-leading automation platform, is we're moving that into Versio platform, which is very exciting. We have 650 automation customers around the world, and those customers today have been, pushing Imagine to give them a next generation platform, and so I think that we've got an early release of Versio automation. I think that by the end of this year we're going to be in a really good place with Versio platform. We've got a couple of really exciting wins that we hope to be able to announce in the next couple of days. Selenium has been a complete transformation in its own portfolio. We did a soft launch of a product called Selenium One at NAB a year ago, and we relaunched that product at NAB this year. Really excited about the capabilities of what we're doing with Selenium One, which is our next generation compression and processing platform. We put a lot of effort in, believe it or not, our next generation routers. I think that our IP3 baseband router that we have on the market today is the latest and greatest router, and that coupled with our new product that we're announcing here at the show called Selenium Network Processor is the only true IP to IP processing platform that's on the market that supports 100 gig interfaces. It's complete software programmable, and it's I think going to redefine today's baseband networks. And Epic is our next generation IP multi-viewer. So if you get a chance, take a look at what we're doing here at the show with our next generation IP multi-viewers, a product that we launched earlier this year and is gaining a lot of steam, and we're real excited about that. And Tellurio is our brand for our next generation OTT technologies, from what we're doing with packaging and transcoding and dynamic ad insertion, and even transforming the way storage is being utilized in the home with your traditional DVR. Most of that technology now is being virtualized in the cloud, and we have a recording platform that does that. So real quickly, XG, as I mentioned, is our next generation software-defined ad management platform. It's leveraging a lot of IP expertise that's in the company today. It's impression-based. It's has measurement and optimization tools. It's delivering targeted advertising, and we're integrating it with playout automation and workflow. And so this notion of having a seamless ad management and playout architecture with XG and what we're doing with Versio is finally coming to fold. So we're really excited about that. if you guys have ever seen that, but I'm not the author. Elon Musk is. And I thought it was appropriate to just kind of give you a sense of what's getting ready to happen. You know, this was his version of the Hyperloop, and we believe that there's a very similar analogy as it relates to how this industry is going to morph into the next generation of software development, and it's really all around what we're doing with microservices. So you've heard of Xenium, I hope. Some of you guys have written about it. It's our microservices platform architecture. We introduced it about 3 years ago. So I know some people at the show are going to talk about microservices. We actually introduced it 3 years ago. It's at a very advanced stage. It's at such an advanced stage that at NAB this year, we talked about opening up Xenium to our entire customer base and our partner base for the same reasons why we helped create AIMS. Because we believe that while lots of customers will deploy our technologies that are powered by Xenium, we feel like there's so much more that our customers can do if we gave them the keys to that blueprint architecture, such that they can bring in third-party APIs, they can do their own development, custom development. They can certainly look at getting to the market much faster. Somebody was asking me the other day, you know, just in simple words, what's microservices and like, why do we need microservices? And, you know, for me, the simplest way to describe the value of microservices is the ability to deliver a feature or a function that can result in a service and deliver it independent of the entire software that normally would be required as it relates to that feature or function. So today we develop features and functions, or yesterday I should say, we develop features and functions, and depending on, you know, the schedule of our roadmap, customers may not see those features and functions come out of QA to be able to deploy for a year because of, you know, the way we've managed that roadmap. Well, today, not only can we fix software bugs, but we can deliver new features and new functions like in days. In fact, there's some pretty exciting things that I think Brick's going to talk about that we've been able to deliver to customers that we would have otherwise not been able to do had we had not had a true microservices architecture and be where we are with Open Xenium. So today, we have over 1,000 components in our library. That means there's things that are already developed and available that we can take out of the library and deploy it to our customers today. And every time there's something new, whether it's a bug fix or a new feature, it goes into the library. It creates a much more flexible and easy to use blueprint for our customers. I mean, we've given you know, sort of the keys for several of our large customers to sort of take a test drive with Xenium. Just use Xenium for the way you build your own networks, independent of Imagine. And it's pretty exciting to see, you know, what, you know, Xenium is going to do to transform and change the networks for customers going forward. We've quietly been awarded 5 patents on Xenium in microservices, which we're pretty excited about. So we certainly have learned a lot. In fact, at the show, we're actually doing a joint demonstration with IBM with their version of their AI, which is Watson. You guys probably heard Watson. But here at the show, we're doing something real simple that we thought about like just a couple of weeks ago, that we could actually take our microservices architecture, Xenium, and IBM's Watson, and we could put together an API interface such that you could do speech to text for closed captioning. Now that's just one little simple thing that we thought about like 2 weeks ago. We developed it with IBM. They're going to show it at their booth. We're going to show it here to just show the power of what we can do with our microservices architecture. And it begins to sort of, you know, open up your minds as to the ideas that our customers are going to have as it relates to new service ideas and new revenue generating ideas, new features and functionality. And this is something that's, in my opinion, is game changing. Just to give you an idea of some of the velocity of some of the new technologies that we've launched that are based on Imagine software-defined platform technologies. If you just kind of look at the bottom of this chart, you know, 5 out of the 6 new platforms that we've announced are powered by Xenium. And the only reason why our storage is not powered by Xenium is because the hardware-based platform and much of what we package together is with HP. So a lot of the intellectual property is theirs. But outside of that, our Versio platform, Versio Playout, what we're doing with network processing with Selenium, Epic, all of our OTT technologies are based on Xenium, so we're pretty excited about it. We're not talking about it, we're actually developing products on top of our microservices platform. So 3 major product announcements that we're making at the show. I talked a little bit about Selenium Network Processor. It's the industry's first and only IP-to-IP software-defined video processor that's fully software programmable with FPGAs. It has 100 gig interfaces. It's very exciting because not only do customers need it today to bridge baseband to IP, but even when the network is all IP and there's not a baseband router there, you'll still leverage the power of our SMP platform for the way processing will be done. So it is very similar to the theme and strategy that we've had as it relates to introducing products that don't have a forklift. They stay in the network and they continue to grow as the network evolves and changes. Versio platform is our modular design around next generation automation, and Game Plan is just one of our modules, but I brought it up because 9 Network, which is in Australia, is in the process of deploying this. The team's very excited about it. I know Graham and the team are sort of grinning over there because there's nothing like having one of your first customers be the size and scale of someone like 9, and I'm very proud and excited to see what these guys have done. So real quick, I won't go into a whole lot of details, but what's cool about our booth is, one, we're in our own separate building. We can control our own acoustics. We can do things like this. We can serve wine and beer, and the entire booth is a virtual demo in a sense. And so depending on how much time you have, whether you have time today or tomorrow, I know you all are very inquisitive, and it's amazing how much you want to learn about the technologies that companies like us are delivering. But just take an hour out of your schedule this week and just spend 10 minutes at each one of our stations and just get a feel for the kinds of things that we're doing, because it's pretty exciting and it's very, very transformational. So there's 5 basic themes that are all interconnected with one another. Certainly we have live playout, we've got live production, we have playout, we have ad management, multi-screen, and multi-services, which is all sort of right in this area right here. Right over here on my left and your right is our video wall, which is our sort of end-to-end view of the future of television. Check, if you want to pull Brick or any of the product folks aside, and they can certainly walk you through all the elements that really drive our thinking. We actually started with this future of television blueprint to really help us understand and think through what we needed to innovate first, second, and third. And if you look at sort of where our product portfolio is, and you look at the end-to-end, glass-to-glass sort of workflow, we're pretty excited about where we're at. We're able to take advantage of this environment right here to do as much education and training and advertising as we possibly can about Imagine and where we're investing our time, money, and energy. So we've got 6 keynotes, plus Brick and I are going to talk about microservices in a lot more detail tomorrow, right before happy hour. And we have IBM and Al Jazeera, I believe, that are going to join us for that. So that'll be great. So if you get a chance, please come join us for any of these. And with that, Gladina, if you and Brick can maybe join me on stage, and I'll open it up for questions. All the really hard product questions go to Brick. All the marketing related questions go to Gladina, and all the business questions I'll take.
Did you say you'd already made Xenium open and with that idea of extending it, or you're thinking about it?
No, we have opened up Xenium. It is right now we have about 60 customers who have expressed interest in being part of the initial launch. We can't support 60 customers out of the gate, and so we're working with a handful of those customers, and the goal really is to get from here to NAB to where we can be in a position to more broadly make Xenium available to a broader set of customers. Right now, the most important thing is, the best way for me to depict this is, anybody who has Versio today or Selenium or Epic, they have a version of Xenium today. They're just not using it in the way that we think they have a unique opportunity to expand it. We have customers like Major League Baseball and Disney who have a unique opportunity to take Xenium and use it across their entire workflow. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Brick, but that's right now our timeline and our game plan.
Yeah, our project was to soft launch it at NAB, to use the summertime to work with a select handful of customers, to learn what it takes to take a product vendor company like Imagine and transform them into a company that acts more like Red Hat, who can support a larger developer base, who can interact more collaboratively with their customers, and who can in general just position themselves and commit themselves to being a fully open organization.
What approach our competitors are going to have, but we've made the buying decision as flexible as however way our customers want to buy. That's the way we're going to sell it to them. So in the case of Disney, today we've sold them our IP play out as a service. So it's metered, so they pay for what they use. So there's a baseline that comes with supplying the technology and the software, but instead of having this all the costs associated with the software and supporting channels all day 7x24, they pay just when they're using it. We have customers that want to still buy an enterprise license. We don't like that as much. We want our software-based technologies and platforms to feel more like a software as a service model for them and for us, but we certainly haven't showered the idea that we wouldn't support them if they wanted to use CapEx dollars to buy an enterprise-based license.
So virtualization is taking the technology that exists today. It's the servers and platforms and applications that exist today that are tightly coupled to an operating system, wrapping them up and uploading them into a data center environment, whether private or public, and you can just call it cloud. So that's virtualization. That's taking something from tightly coupled onto a particular piece of hardware, abstracting it, and then running it somewhere else. Microservices is radically different. So starting with Xenium, when we designed Xenium for a world where there was no operating system at all. And that sounds strange to say. How am I going to run anything if there's no operating system? Well, how do you run anything in Azure? You write against a set of services that exist that perform the same functions that you get from an operating system. If you need stuff off disk, you call an Azure service to get stuff off disk. You want to send stuff to a network, so on and so on. So microservices, first of all, should be cloud native. They shouldn't be something that's lifted from an existing environment and ported to a cloud environment. The second thing about microservices is the fundamental description of microservices is it's the minimum functionality that you can put, the minimum effort and functionality that you can put into the network that can deliver actual business value. You would never upload Office 365 into a network if all you needed was a spell checker. If all you needed was a spell checker, upload the spell checker. And so it's this notion of looking across our entire portfolio, decomposing it down into all these constituent parts, and having a platform that lets us reinvent those technologies in a way that allows us to mix and match them and run them independent of environment, independent of topology, and independent of our particular order. That's the whole idea of moving to OpenXenon. If you don't like how we've done something, let's collaborate, let's talk about it, let's find a way to make it operate more efficiently in your network. So microservices is a much bigger subject matter than just virtualization.
So Brick, talk a little bit about some examples, recent examples, where we've had customers and even some of the professional services team members with inside of Imagine, where traditionally that's a level 3 engineer that's fixing a software defect or a software bug that would have taken weeks or months to identify it, that we're able to address those things, in hours
Sure.
as a result of the new architecture.
As a result of the fact that we have invested uniquely maybe in compute, I'll go that far, maybe in compute, we have invested uniquely in building a microservices platform. So that's first and foremost. We have the tool sets to design, develop, deploy, manage, and operate microservices in one tool set. We built our own test framework. We built the entire thing. So that's part of it. We use that platform to build product, and we build that product by building all those individual functionalities and designing them in a visual environment, which you can walk around the booth and see, and building product. When it comes to deploying that product out in the field, whenever we run into a feature gap or a bug or a problem, most often all we have to do is send a very small update to the field, not an uninstall, reinstall.
Go through the QA process.
Go through the QA process. We can QA just that one feature in isolation. The benefits that come out of this are just massive. So we, at the same time that we're introducing all of this flexibility, we're actually lowering risk, because every one of those components can be tested independently of every other one. If one thing needs to change, I'm only changing one thing.
It's very similar to, today, I don't know what mobile phone you use. I happen to have an Apple phone, but, Apple doesn't ask me to give me an update. They quietly push me, a bug fix or whatever it is. And it's a very similar approach.
And if I can advertise a bit more, we have a masterclass on microservices on Saturday at 12. So really encourage everybody to join those masterclasses.
I'm going to add a little bit to her advertisement for the masterclass. So we did this at NAB, and one of our guys, Darren, back there, happened to get up in front of everybody, and he built a microservice. And people just kind of looked at it. And I was sitting there going, why aren't people blown away? You really, really, as an industry, should be blown away. He was standing up here, on the other stage, sitting at a podium, sitting on logged into a machine. We have IP flying around the network on glass. He's reaching in and throwing software components into the design environment, grabbing that IP stream and doing things with it for the audience. He's building a product in front of you. That's amazing. That is absolutely phenomenal technology. So he's going to be repeating the demo here at the show, and I invite everybody to just really think about what it is he's doing live on stage, fearlessly. Right, Darren? Fearlessly.
So, Tom Coughlin, Coughlin Associates. I had a question. You in the course of your talk, you were mentioning that you didn't include storage in terms of the services because HP is doing that. But HP is deeply involved in software-defined storage. How do you see that fitting, and what do you see that enabling within your microservices, this whole
so because we don't control a lot of the inherent software, it's taken longer for us and Brick and his team to incorporate that in. You might want to touch on that, but we certainly are moving our IOX platform to our microservices architecture as well.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've done with our optimizations for Microsoft Azure and for some of the other cloud environments is that we've gone to embrace their object store or blob storage. Optimizing for object store and blob storage, you have to have an abstraction layer that allows you the same level of performance that you would get on-prem as you're going to get, or that you need from a public cloud environment. So our IOX brand will follow that technology into public cloud. But for physical on-prem deployment, it's hard to beat spinning disk.
What I'm saying is that it's harder. Yesterday when, we all had, hardware-based platforms that, we built a product that did a function. You could make acquisitions that made sense because you were buying technology to fill in the gaps of your portfolio. And obviously, you always want to find technology, customer, and cost synergies in any transaction that you're doing. I'm just saying that as the industry moves further and further down this path, where more and more of the technologies and products and solutions are defined by software, it begins to get much harder. The due diligence process associated with how a company is developing their products and services and the applicability to, let's say, what we're doing gets harder and harder. And it's part of the reason why we've been so adamant about AIMS, and it's why we've actually been spending a lot of time with our competitors. We've actually spent a ton of time with, our 3 or 4 main competitors to socialize how we're doing things. Because at some point, there needs to be consolidation, and it's a lot easier to consolidate when you're all sort of on the same framework and you're developing things the same way, and it certainly would make things a lot easier, because in the case where that's not a point of validation, then you are looking at what's the customer synergy and what's the employee synergy and what's the cost synergy, and oftentimes you don't get the cost synergy out of that transaction because you can't port over the software and the technology. You end up stranding a lot of the technology behind, and that comes with a lot of cost because you got to continue to sustain and support that product line that you're not able to seamlessly migrate those customers over to a platform that we would deem to be the product going forward.
The most valuable asset is going to be the people. This industry is very different from every other industry out there. We have a unique set of technologies. We have a unique set of challenges ahead of us. It's late in moving it through this transition into cloud. Every other industry around has been through automation, robotics, and moving to cloud and artificial intelligence. This industry is behind. But what this industry does have is just a plethora of well-trained engineers who have distinct knowledge about how to do very specific things with video under very specific constraints.
But that aside, I mean, I've acquired 17 companies. I've sold 3 companies, and it's hard today. Like, it's really hard because we're trying. We'd like to add more scale to Imagine. It's just the M&A process is tough, and trying to find. As a technology company, you tend to focus on technology first. People is a given. I mean, you don't even get to the people part if there's not a technology match. Or the technology synergy, and if there's technology synergy and customer synergy, you get to the people, and if the culture's a mismatch, then you never do the transaction. But it's getting harder and harder, and I'll tell you, I mean, I've personally been very distracted over the last year, looking at how Imagine can bulk up and gain a lot of scale from M&A, and it's been a frustrating process.
Claudina?
I said I would pick up the difficult ones.
Well, and one of the things that you might want to do, Brick, in answering the question is talk about where a lot of the traditional telecom equipment suppliers are in microservices, because they're probably 5 to 10 years ahead because of just where the telcos were in deploying a microservices architecture. I do think that our peers who haven't developed their technologies and their software platforms the way we have I think Brick was being nice in the way he was articulating the fact that you can't just port something from a hardware-based platform and call it a microservices software-based platform. It has to be organically developed a certain way from the beginning, and I think the big differentiator for Imagine is we acquired a company that was spending years developing a microservices architecture, even though they didn't call it that then. And we hit the accelerator button 3 years ago. I mean, we gave Brick a lot of money to go accelerate this because we felt like it was the company's game changer. We felt like it was going to be our differentiator, and it is, and it will. And maybe you can tag on that, but.
So, like Charlie said, every call, every byte that hits every device that's sitting in your pockets and buzzing and intermittently telling you about what's going on in the world, all of that flows through telco networks today. And the only reason that it's possible on telco networks today is because the telco industry embraced the move to IP and virtualization. And they use a technology stack called NFV and a specialized container called VNFs. So they're light years ahead when it comes to how do I manage these things at just tremendous scale. Everybody who has a phone on the planet is using a telco network, whether they realize it or not, and sometimes multiple telco networks. What's different about our industry is that time has moved on since they went down that path. And in fact, one of the exercises that we underwent was to go back to the telco companies and say, look what we've done. And the telco companies are actually modifying the VNF architecture to sort of embrace where cloud computing is going, to become much more dynamic and much more versatile in the network based on what's happening, not just on what we're doing, but what Google is doing and Facebook is doing, as Amazon is doing with microservices. The industry, our industry, has started down this road with traditional virtualization, and you're going to hear a lot about Docker containers and microservices at the show. Those are just 2 steps along a story arc or along a timeline, which lead to the next generation, which is cloud native. And that cloud native is built purely out of microservices. And those microservices are based on, advanced container and deployment technologies. And in our case, we've already got one called a virtual container that allows us to deploy extremely lightweight processes into the network that don't actually have any bulk or weight to them until they actually land. So for instance, I can take a block of XML and I can send it to an arbitrary server in Azure, and I can build a playout system by description. So I didn't actually build an image, I didn't actually build a container to do it. And that's a really, really powerful metaphor for how we're going to provision and manage services moving forward. What's most important about microservices is even though microservices are an evolution in the entire story arc of virtualization, it's backwards compatible across the entire stack. So today, on the stand, one of the products that we announced is the Selenium network processor. There's nothing virtual about it at all. It weighs 30 pounds, something like that, 25 pounds, 20 pounds. It has weight. It's made out of metal. It's got FPGAs inside of it. It's got a very exotic motherboard inside of it. It's got a quad-core ARM processor inside of it, and it runs a microservice, right?
Yeah,
So
I was going to say that
microservices,
the takeaway that the cloud, the microservices are not just for cloud application. We are leveraging them for on-premise, on-appliance applications as well.
Yeah, we're everything from on-appliance to traditional server channel in a box to software as a service to pure cloud, native cloud environments. In fact, you can go to Microsoft today, and there are 6, I imagine, products in the Azure catalog that are all based around microservices today.
I'll give you a boardroom back office reality of how we got to microservices as fast as we did. When I got here 4 years ago, I struggled with many things. One of the things I struggled with was going to visit with customers and learning that every 5 to 7 years they were replacing their entire playout network. And it was just a head scratcher that they invested all this time, money, and energy to deploy channels on this playout platform that they bought. And 7 years later, they were doing an RFP and replacing it. And the software that they were leveraging for features and functionality, sort of went away because they were starting back all over again. Why was that? Well, they had to, at that time, all the software was tethered to the hardware, and the hardware was dated, and they had to replace the hardware, which meant that they had to replace the whole platform. And I spent so much time visiting with customers, and every customer I went to would talk about this notion that we're just another snowflake, Charlie. There's thousands of these snowflakes out here, and you're going to have to continue to develop all these custom features and functionality. And I'm as a business manager, I'm trying to figure out, like, how do I make money when I got to build products that are customly developed for hundreds and thousands of customers? Like, that just doesn't scale. It's hard to make money that way. And so I met Brick, took him to his first NBA basketball game ever. You guys probably don't know what that is if you're over here in Europe, but they bounce a ball and they lowered the net somewhere along the line. But I met Brick, and he started talking to me about this product that they were developing, and the light bulb sort of went off that, holy cow, I mean, this could be the way we address all these snowflakes. Yeah. Because there's no way that we're going to be able to continue to develop custom features for every customer. And the hidden jewel for us with Xenium and microservices is our ability to continue to develop features and functionalities that are applicable for individual customers much more cost effective than we would have been able to do it before. And by the way, give it to them in small bite-sized chunks when they need it, so that we can monetize it when that opportunity arises. That was sort of the real reason behind why we did this and why we put a lot of energy into this. And I think it's going to work, certainly for us.